chapter 4, verse 6. My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy Elohim. I will also forget thy children.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
So when we read this scripture, most of the time, right, when I hear people talk about this scripture, they kind of footnote it. Okay. It says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because, you know, we want to convince everyone else that don't believe the way we believe that, hey, that you have a lack of knowledge and you're going to be destroyed because of it, you know. But when you look at this in context, who is he talking to?
His people.
He's talking to his people. Who specifically is he talking to?
Yeah, Israel.
He's talking to Israel, but who specifically? This is why context is important. Let's go ahead and can I have you go up to verse 4?
All right, Hosea chapter 4, verse 4. Yet let no man strive, nor reprove another. For thy people are as are they that strive with the priest. Okay, so this is why I say don't be a slave to a translation, because it's not really clear on who this is talking to until you investigate what's going on here. He's talking to the priest about their behavior. He's saying, my people are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. He's talking to the priest. What was one of the roles of the priest concerning people? And to teach them Torah. So it was actually the priest who was causing their people, his people, to be destroyed. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't the fact that, you know, well, yeah, they weren't going off and telling their stuff, but it's because the priests were not doing their job. They were causing them to be destroyed. So he's saying this scripture, as you read on, say, therefore you shall stumble in the day. The prophet also shall stumble with you in the night, and I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because they haven't been teaching the commandments as they're supposed to. Because you have rejected knowledge, I will also reject you from being a priest for me. This is why he's rejecting them. Because the priesthood is corrupted. The priesthood is corrupted right here. Because you have forgotten the law of your Elohim, I will also forget your children. In Micah, and I want y'all to pay attention. You know I like patterns, right? Mm-hmm. All right, so pay attention. So we got chastisement of the priests in that context. In Micah 3:11, it reads. Matter of fact, if someone gets there, you can read it first. Whoever gets there, read it first.
The heads thereof judge for reward, and the priests thereof teach for hire.
They do what?
They judge for reward, and they teach for hire.
Okay.
And the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet will they lean upon Yahuwah, and say, is not Yahuwah among us, nor evil can come among us.
Okay, so we got two things right here, two sets of scriptures that's highlighting the character of the priest at this point in time. We got two scriptures highlighting the character of the priest. It says, your heads judge for a bride, and your priest teach for pay. So if you want to know what's going on, you got to pay me. You got to pay me. And they ain't talking about tithes and offerings at this point. It's not talking about that. Don't have to come about some of them gold joints right there, some of them silverbacks. Now, you don't have to go to this one, but I want to establish this. So I really like to do patterns of three. So Jeremiah 5:31. The prophets prophesied falsely, and the priests ruled by their own power. And my people love to have it so. But what will you do in the end? what will you do in the end? So, I want to see if y'all see what's going on. What happened in these three scriptures that we were reading? What pattern can you identify?
False information.
You can say false information. They were giving out false information
Or no information at all.
or no information at all.
You see where the priests that are supposed to be following Yah are not.
Okay, and the priests who are supposed to be following Yah are not. There is corruption among the priesthood. The priesthood, what level was the priesthood according to the people? Was they lower than the people, or were they higher than the people?
Higher.
All right, so what we can see is within this structure, this framework that the Most High created, the structure and framework that the Most High created, and He placed these people in position to be righteous, He placed them to be holy, He placed them in these positions so that they could teach His people the ways of righteousness. But that office became corrupted. One thing that if you read the book of Maccabees, and 2nd Maccabees specifically, you will see that at that time, you know what they were doing to the priesthood? Wait, I'm sorry. Who were the priesthood supposed to go to?
Levi.
Not just Levi, but who specifically?
Aaron.
Sons of Aaron, right? Now you get to the book of 2nd Maccabees. I can't remember the chapter. It could be like 4 or 5. But you get to there, and then what are they doing with the priesthood? How do you obtain the priesthood?
Buckets and money.
By the highest bidder. The highest bidder would get you the priesthood. So there was this degeneration of the sanctity of that office. But how can we look at that from that lens and see how it can be transposed onto what's going on today or what has happened throughout history? And when you can pretty much sum that up with the fact that great power, which the Levites had, specifically the priests, and influence can lead to corruption. Also, organized religion has the potential to do what to people? It has the potential to corrupt them. But what else does that? What does it have the potential to do? Organized religion. Because really, we talk about organized religion in the context of today, but it was also present in ancient Israel. What we see right here is organized religion. So let's break it down. What is organized religion? So let's define some things. What is organized religion?
Group of people with the same beliefs.
Okay, say that again.
Group of people with the same beliefs.
He said a group of people with the same beliefs. But how does it come about?
Scare tactics.
Scare tactics is a part of it.
They sign people up for their religion?
You said what?
They sign people up for their religion?
You said sign people up for their religion? They don't necessarily sign you up, but there are ways that they can convince you, right? Or manipulate you into it. Okay, organized religion. What else? What else we got?
They're appointed by men.
They're appointed by men. Anything else? It's ran like a business. So when you think about organized religion, you have a group of people. A group of people. It doesn't matter how big or small the group is, but they are the ones who decide this is what will be. These are the standards, the rules that we're going to govern ourselves by. And we can change this when we want to. We can change this, we can shift this according to our understanding, our liking, right? So when you look at what was given from Yah to them, they didn't have that jurisdiction. But when you look at other institutions, and specifically, because the context of what we're going to talk about today is organized religion. Within organized religion, it will begin to present issues for the people because they have this power to make decisions on whatever they feel like. They can conjure up whatever thoughts, they can conjure up whatever belief systems, and because their power can influence the masses around them, they will lead them into a form of corruption. And this is exactly what the priesthood did. This is exactly what the priesthood did. So, effects of organized religion. Talk to me. We know what organized religion, Christianity, Catholicism. What are some of the effects of these
Get rid
institutions?
of their cultures.
That's big.
It,
Hold on. We gotta back up on that one. They will cause you to get rid of your culture. What happened to us? That is a big principle in organized religion, is that it causes you to remove yourself from your culture and to the things that, however an individual may have received it, whether it was, divine or through some ancient text written by their ancestors, as in the case of us, right? Both of those apply to us. They will cause you to get rid of your heritage, your culture, and take on whatever it is that they want you to believe in. What else is effective organized religion?
keeps you in the wrong standing with Yah, always.
It will keep you in a wrong standing with Yah. Excellent, excellent, good. All right, now I want y'all to think about what has happened to us in the past 400 years. Now tell me, what are some more effects of organized religion?
Indoctrination.
Indoctrination. Indoctrination.
Propagation of lies.
Propagation of lies. What about complacency? Think about this. Think about this, right? Complacency. One of the biggest things that has occurred to our people here in America.
All over the world.
Huh?
All over the world.
Yeah, but I want to narrow in our focus on here because I live here. So, one of the biggest things that have happened to us is that we're waiting. What are we waiting for?
That rapture.
We're waiting for a rapture. We're waiting to just be removed from out of a situation. So that has caused us to be complacent and not understand that we have to prepare ourselves in a manner for some type of deliverance. Whether it's you're preparing yourself spiritually, you're preparing yourself for some type of coming judgment that you're gonna experience in this land. Maybe not you, but the people of that land. Because even if you look at Egypt, the first 3 plagues were experienced by who? Everybody. Everyone. Egyptian and Israelite. So if we're expecting America to be judged, are we not going to see, it may not be for us, but are we not going to see some of this judgment occur right before our eyes?
Yeah.
We're going to see it. But this idea, this nature that pretty much has been embedded in us to be complacent, where we don't have to do anything. Matter of fact, if you try to do something, then you don't have faith. You don't believe the Bible. You growing your own food. Just believe in Yah that He gonna give you manna. Just you by yourself. It breeds this complacency. What else? What else can it do?
Division. Keep division.
Okay, explain that. Explain. That's good. Explain it.
Just like within Christianity, you got denominations, so this belief, that belief, and it just keeps people divided, not coming together.
Would you all agree that's the case?
Yeah.
What?
I was just gonna say, I feel like in some cases it destroys the family, the structure of the family. Because you have the priest that can tell the woman, instead, the woman to go by what a priest says versus her head, you know what I mean? So it kind of wipes out the role of the man.
Bring that back real quick. Bring that back. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you too well. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I just need
Okay,
for
so what I was
clarification.
saying was, I feel like, and I've seen how it can destroy the family and the structure of the family. Because a lot of times the priest, pastor, whatever you want to put it, becomes the head of, sometimes the man allowed to be the head of their family, but the woman will tend to go to that man for instruction, even if it overrides what her husband is saying.
That's one of the things I wrote on my own personal list.
Pastor said.
We're actually going to address that next week. This is really a two-part lesson, and that's actually because it's so important what you just said.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we're actually addressing next week is the biblical order, submission, and how organized religion has affected that. So good job on that. She's absolutely 100% correct.
So what you're saying is that if the pastor told, the holy pastor told my wife to do something and I say no, then my wife is actually sinning for disobeying what I say?
Sinning for disobeying what you said?
Yeah.
You
Against what the holy pastor does say?
Yep. But that's the mentality that has been put on us, and it is destroying families. It is destroying households. It has created a lot of what you see now. It has created that, and then those households break up. So then you have a broken family. Now you're raising broken children, and it just becomes this repetitive cycle that just continues on. But that's good. We also have this willingness. I'm gonna see if anyone else mentions it first. What else? Effects of organized religion. Y'all throwing out some good stuff. What else y'all got?
Misguidance.
You say what?
Misguidance.
Misguidance. We've become very misguided. What else? What else?
The doctrines of men are more important than the laws of the Father.
Every time. Every time. You look at these institutions, and that's all you see.
The
doctrines of men are more
all kinds
important.
of mistreatment from everybody.
You say what?
The willingness to accept all kind of abuse.
That's the one I was looking
And
for.
that beating from everybody, and you just take it because you should turn the other cheek.
That's what I'm looking for right there.
Yeah.
The willingness to accept defeat. I see your hand. We'll get you in just a second. Because of a misunderstanding of Scripture, misunderstanding of what the Messiah said about turning the other cheek and stuff like that, it has caused us to be a people who would be beat down when we don't have to be. If anyone's going to beat us down, you know who that's going to be? The Most High.
Oh, yeah.
That should be the only person who we should be allowing to beat us down because there's not much we can do against him.
Right.
But if you let somebody come up here and beat down your family or harm you or harm your family,
Just gonna pray for them.
and all you can do is offer up a prayer on their behalf, you have been brainwashed. You have been brainwashed. You are a victim of organized religion. That's not how a tribal people works.
Dang.
Tribal people don't operate like that. But that willingness to accept defeat. Good, good. Y'all got okay, y'all on it today. So let's define some things as we go ahead and see how this stuff plays out. Orthodox. How many of you ever heard that word orthodox or Orthodox Jew or Orthodox religion? Do y'all know what that means? What was that?
Oh, I'm talking to myself over
Oh.
there. Go ahead.
They follow specific rules, even some that are not in the Bible.
They can. They
What's on
can.
Main Street?
It's mainstream, right? So this is the official definition of orthodox. It is relating to or conforming to the approved form of any doctrine, philosophy, or ideology. Relating to or conforming to beliefs, attitudes, modes of conduct that are generally approved or sound or correct in opinion or doctrine, especially in theological and religious doctrine. So, what it means to be orthodox, if you are Orthodox Jew, right, then that means that you are following what has been approved by some group of people. You are following the mainstream. You are following what has been approved for you to believe in. This is what some people have sanctioned as correct. Right? So in the form of Bible users, people who follow the Bible, would we be orthodox or unorthodox?
Unorthodox.
Would be unorthodox. Why?
Because we believe in the whole Bible, and not just one segment of it.
We believe in the whole Bible, not just one
And
segment.
believe in doing what it says.
And believe in doing what it says.
All of it.
So Orthodox, remember, I'm building this, so we just put brick upon brick. So Orthodox is the approved belief system. All right? So what is, if that's Orthodox, then what's heresy?
What we're doing?
Right, what we're doing.
It's not approved.
It's something that's not approved. Now, I'll read the official definition, but that's really it. That's the, if it's not approved, then it's heresy. This is why what he's saying is correct, because according to the mainstream understanding of the Bible, what we're doing is heretical. It is not approved.
By who?
The Pope.
By who? Who has given the authority to approve such things?
Dang.
So here's heresy. Opinion or doctrine at variance with the orthodox or accepted doctrine, especially of a church or religious system. And here's this one. Roman Catholic Church, the willful and persistent rejection of any article of faith by a baptized member of the church. And then it's the definitions. Any belief or theory that is strongly at variance with established beliefs. So that's what the heresy is. So if you disagree, or you live, or confess anything that's not sanctioned for you to believe in, then you're a heretic. You are heretical. Are we clear on those definitions?
Okay.
So we're clear that we are technically heretics in here, according to the mainstream.
Yeah. That's fine.
I was gonna say I'm fine with that. That's cool. Because none of them are the ones who have the ability to give authority on what's right and what's wrong.
That's right.
So you can call me whatever it is that you want. It's not gonna change it's not gonna change my belief system. But religion, name a more powerful institution than religion. I'll wait.
The Fed.
So the Fed,
The federal bank, that's what I'm talking about, the federal banking system.
they ain't even more powerful. You know why?
I don't know.
You know why? Because guess what? Here, let's look at it for this. Let's look at it for this. I'm glad you said that, though. That's good. That's good. Let's play with that real quick. So the Fed, the Federal Bank, the Federal Reserve, the IRS. You do something wrong on your taxes, and you're getting penalized. What did that make you want to do? Let's say you have a family of, let's say you got a large family. You got a family of 8, 9 people, right? And they taxing you now as a single individual.
Ouch.
You know that means they taking more money, right?
Correct.
So how does that affect you?
Let's come on home.
That's less coming into your home. That means your family is now lacking in some area, right? It can make a man, I don't know if y'all ever like struggled for real, but if you ever struggled for real, I don't care how good you think you are, but a thought will pop up. Make you want to do something that you're not supposed to do, that you know is wrong. Now, that will make you want to do something. Let's say illegal. This is all hypothetical. It makes you want to do something illegal.
Well, you could say unorthodox.
Makes you want to do something unorthodox. Thank you. But you want to know what happens when you put religion involved. A person is not only willing to do something, they are willing to give up something. Like what? A person influenced by religion is willing to give up their life.
Yeah.
You know how powerful your institution has to be to make you want to give up your own life for what it is that you believe. That is a powerful institution. So when this institution has structured its information and disseminate it to you in ways in which you believe that if you don't do this, then you're going to have an eternal damnation. That's a motivating factor right there. There's no greater motivation
Right.
To avoid that hell.
than to avoid hell.
This is so true.
It don't matter how erroneous the doctrine may be,
Right.
but there's no greater motivation than bringing God involved. There's no greater motivation. That is a powerful institution. And especially when you believe that's, y'all ever seen, how many of y'all familiar with the Branch Davidians? In Waco, Texas. David Koresh,
Yeah.
we was talking about that the other day, right? You know how powerful your belief in God has to be
Right.
to make you give your wife to another man because he's supposed to be the one to bear the burden of sex.
The burden.
Religion has a way. Religion has a way of tapping into areas of the brain that nothing else can hit, can touch.
Witchcraft.
Yes, it can be. It can be. Religion, see, the religion in itself is not the problem. We have to understand that religion is the way you worship your deity, the way you worship your supernatural. So for Israelites, we do have a religion. I know we don't like that, that's a bad word. We do have it. And the more I look into it, the more I'm trying to find where does the religion end and where the culture begins. Because at points in time, it's almost,
It's intermingled.
yeah.
It's intertwined. There's no
Yes.
separation.
So we can't look at religion in itself as a bad thing. But organized religion is different. Because that came through the men. That came through men coming together and setting things up in ways where even if their intentions wasn't initially to control people, you can control people. And we have some of these in this Hebraic walk.
Okay.
Very true.
So, okay, so let's do this. Torah Culture Assembly, is this a faction of organized religion? If so, say why. Okay, if you say no, say why.
You don't tell us what you think.
It's that simple. I don't really care what you think. Not only do I not care what you think, I'm not going to not fellowship with you because of it. I'm not going to cut you off from coming around me just because of this belief. Like, if you believe the Shabbat starts at night and I believe it starts in the morning, okay.
Keep it.
We both keeping it. Right. Exactly.
So I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to try to convince you what you need to believe. I'm going to present information to you. I'm going to present information to you and I'm going to let you make a decision on how you interpret that information.
Okay.
Now I can recommend, I can even try to guide you to the path that I believe that is correct according to my understanding that the Father has given me. But if you have a difference in opinion, okay, not that big of a deal, unless you make it that big of a deal.
Right.
But in organized religion, and this is how you can tell, because some people are like, I don't do assemblies. It's really, you just have to find out the manner in which they operate.
Okay.
Do they cut you off because of your belief system? Do they cut you off because you can think what you want to think? So in order to be an organized religion in here, there has to be some type of, okay, you're in here, and if you do not believe what we believe, then you must go.
Go. Gotta go.
You cannot be among us. And if that's how they want to run it, that's fine. If people want to associate with that, they still have that right.
Right.
But I'm just giving you the tools to identify what is organized religion. Because it's here. What you got?
Is that where the line separates when we talk about culture intermingled with religion, right? So in the culture aspect, you're still operating as a tribe or like a family unit. You know, it's structured in such a way which doesn't end on Shabbat, right?
Correct.
When you come out of that, is that what you're, I guess I'm trying to find, because you mentioned the line of there being intermingled, but when you're saying you believe what I believe, that takes away what the head of the structure.
Well, I'm not really sure of your question, so I'll try to answer it the best I can. When you're dealing with the family unit, the head of that house establishes the doctrine for that household. Period. No man outside of that family establishes the doctrine that family goes by. Now, when you're dealing with organized religion, that man can believe what he wants to believe, and if he associates with that institution, and if those two things conflict or contradict each other, then you must go. You are not allowed to partake in any fellowship with them because of how you really are running your household, and it does not match up with our system.
Can I also say, in using that example, if the man disagrees with that organization, right, in organized religion, but the wife agrees and the children agrees, then that organized religion most of the times will dismiss the man and say, well, you don't have to be here, send your wife and your children. And then, you know, obviously
that's a very
completely
dysfunctional
Very
organization.
dysfunctional.
If an organization is willing to do that.
But the Christian church does it all the time. We see people, women married, and their husbands never show because he will vocalize that he does not agree with the teachings of that pastor, but he allows, and because they have it's matriarchal, they've told the women, well, you just come, you still coming. He's a heathen. You'll save him, and you know, all this type of stuff. They will go and completely ignore the fact that that woman has an actual head, which is the husband.
Okay.
The next thing I would say is our language. Language, our religion and culture is embedded in our language. And that's why they took that away from us, the original setting.
Correct.
Once they take that, we lost everything.
Correct. That is the very fabric of an individual, is their indigenous language. Because culture is tied into that. There are certain things, even when they try to do the translations of the scriptures, right? So let me qualify this statement. That does not mean that you can't read the English translation and not make it to the kingdom. I'm not saying that. I'm speaking from a cultural paradigm, that when you remove a language, there's things even within the English translation that only thing they can do is kind of like sound it out. Because there's no true translation for it. Or they can, and there are some words where it's a little better, but they don't have an exact translation, a word that can fit there. So you find something that's as close as they can get it. And there are certain things that you just don't understand until you read the language. Like the whole, and I've talked about this, so I'm not going to reiterate it, but the whole tzitzit thing and what that is and how that actually relates to the commandments. Not just because they said wear them, but because the fact that it's a flower and all that stuff. But I'm not going to repeat all of that. But yes, the language is very important, and as it is, well, that's one of the things that they take away. One of the saddest things that I've heard from a mind that's a victim of organized religion is that I thank, I'm saying God because this is what people have said, but I thank God for slavery, because I would have never met Jesus. Y'all heard that before?
Yes, I was like, wow.
What kind of mind? Once again, name a stronger institution. Name one that's more powerful than one that will have you thanking your oppressor for oppressing you. Name a stronger institution than that.
They only send everything through that lash.
You ain't gonna thank the IRS for taxing you.
No.
But there's people who have uttered. They thank God for slavery. How is that not a problem?
I think for the fact that they didn't go through reap those repercussions of slavery, they haven't felt their child being whipped, taken from them. They haven't witnessed their husband being raped and beat.
Okay, okay.
So it's that cognitive dissonance that they have. And they like, oh yeah, thank you for slavery. Because you're only looking at your situation now.
You ain't looking at the situation now, correct? Okay, okay,
The
that's
person
pretty
who
good.
said that probably have a white wife too.
It was the person I heard said. Actually, I'm sorry. No, I've heard two. I heard a black man and a black woman say it.
It was an evangelist of a church.
I've heard one of them. Yes, yeah, I heard one of them say it as well. It's crazy. It's craziness.
But the congressman that just passed, the one that thanked the police for beating him on the bridge.
Oh, my.
So.
Yeah, Lewis.
John Elder. Oh, him.
So when you talk about the religious mind, I mean, that's where that comes from that too, because Jesus said, you didn't experience what he experienced, them not so his head, but, the religious mind, oppressed mind, said, hey, we gonna love it out of them.
Yeah. Okay. So, let me read this real quick. Just like any captivity in the book, our experience and their environment leaves a residual residue on us. We take on their language, ideologies, the worldview, names, concepts, and sometimes their religion. If the religion is taken on as a whole, you will surely see elements that resemble the religion. So worldview simply is the fundamental knowledge of a specific society. Pretty much there's perspectives and stuff like that, and the things that make up that, which includes, your habits, your behavior, just the way you view everything. Now, acculturation, this is important. It's important to know, but it's really important in the fabric of what it is we're going with this lesson. Does anyone know what that is? Acculturation. 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 Okay. The process of change in artifacts, customs, and beliefs that result from the contact of two or more cultures. The term is also used to refer to the results of such changes. The two major types of acculturation. You have incorporation and direct change. And one may be distinguished such as incorporation refers to the free borrowing and modification of cultural elements. So this is something that's done amongst someone's own free will. So you can kind of, to bring it down on a smaller scale, so you all are Jamaican, and I can come to your house and I can experience different things. Like I've never ate plantains till I came to your house. So then, okay, all of a sudden now I'm starting to eat plantains outside. So I'm starting to like borrowing freely from another culture. So that's understood, right?
Okay.
All right, so that's incorporation. You are freely borrowing from a culture. All right. Now, in contrast, directed change occurs when one group establishes dominance over another through military conquest or political control. Did that happen to us?
Yeah.
All right. Thus, imperialism is the most common precursor to direct change. Like incorporation, direct change involves the selection and modification of cultural characteristics. However, these processes are more varied and the results are more complex because they derive from the interference in one cultural system by members of another. The process that operates under conditions of direct change include forced assimilation, which is the complete replacement of one culture by another, and resistance against aspects of the dominant culture. So the only time you're dealing with a people who suffered a resistance against the dominant culture is the first generation. So we had when we were taken captive and they were trying to oppose their religion on our ancestors, what would happen was some of them will yield, and some of them will submit to the new culture. Some of them would not, and then they would get tortured. They would be killed. Their children would be separated from them. They would try to do things that would cause this person to break or just eliminate the person out of the picture altogether. Because once you get their children, then you've already removed the resistance and you can just teach them, and that creates the cycle right there. So that's the resistance against the dominant culture. That really only comes for the most part within the first generation. After that, because once you bring religion involved, then now this is all influenced by quote unquote God. And so this is what you need. This is why you need to be a slave, because it is the will of God for you to be this white man's slave. It's the will of God for that. So then people begin to accept it. And it just becomes normal. And so then the white man looks like your savior. Understood?
Okay.
All right. So we're about to get into the meat of this. Some of you may have heard this. I put this on my personal Facebook page maybe about 3-4 years. I mean YouTube page maybe about 3-4 years ago. But it's a story about the ham in the oven. All right. So this shows how easily it is for traditions to be passed down unbeknownst to the person passing down the tradition. So there was this couple, a man and a wife. They had a home. And every time they had a big holiday or big feast, the woman will cut the ham in half and cook it. And over time, the man began to get mad because he felt that it was a waste of money, and he wanted to know, why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep wasting our money by doing this? It doesn't make sense. The woman would say, this is what my mother used to do. This is a family tradition. We gotta keep doing this. And so they would fight, they would bicker, they would fight, and there was always tension around certain holidays when they would decide to cook these hams. So they decided to go to counseling one day. And so they began to tell their stories to the counselor, and the man tells his side of the story, like she's wasting all the money. Like every time we have these times, we fight. And she's like, this is a family tradition. I want to keep the traditions of our household alive. The counselor says, tell me more about this tradition. How did this come about? And the woman was like, it's a good question. I don't know. So he told her, okay, you have homework. Your homework is to go talk to your mom and find out, where did this tradition come from? All right? So she goes, has this conversation with her mom, and asks her, hey mom, I have a question for you. Why did you always used to, cut the ham in half and cook it on Thanksgiving? And the mother answered, oh baby, it's because our stove was too small.
Oh my goodness.
We couldn't fit the whole ham. We couldn't fit the whole ham in the oven. So I cut it in half and we would just throw the rest away because we couldn't store it. And so the woman thought about that. And she realized that all this time, she's been following a tradition that made absolutely no sense. So they go back to the counselor. She explains to them, to the counselor, the results, and the husband sitting there with a smug look on his face, kind of smiling. And she feels like, she feels pretty stupid because she didn't know how the tradition, the belief originated. And when she found out, she realized it was something that she didn't really have to do at all. That is how easy it is to transfer traditions when you don't know what it is that you're doing. If you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, it's just that simple. All right? That makes sense?
Yes.
All right, so, speaking of these traditions, there's a book that I have called Lost Christianites by a person named Bart Ehrman. Bart Ehrman is an agnostic, so he doesn't believe the Bible one way or another. He still has he's a white guy, of course. He has a very skewed lens on who the Jews are. Of course, he thinks it's the European Jews, the Ashkenazi. Nevertheless, he brings some stuff to the attention of the reader. And it says, but virtually all forms of modern Christianity, whether they acknowledge it or not, goes back to one form of Christianity that emerged as victorious from the conflicts of the 2nd and 3rd centuries. One form of Christianity decided what was the correct Christian perspective. According to our definitions, what is that? They determine what? They determined what was orthodox. All right? It decided who could exercise authority over Christian belief and practice. That's called what? They institutionalized. All right, so they created the institution, they created what was orthodox, they created the institution, and they determined what forms of Christianity would be marginalized, set aside, and destroyed. What is that called? What? Yeah, it's organized religion, but according to our definitions, what is that?
That's the heretical.
They decide who was heresy. So they decided what was orthodox, they have the institution, and then they the one who decide what's heretical. It also decided which books to canonize into Scripture and what books to set aside as heretical, teaching the false ideas. All right. So, with that being said, one thing about Christianity is that it would like you to believe that the way everything is the way it always been. And after the Messiah died and rose from the grave 3 days later, and all of this just boom, just happened. But that's not the case.
Okay.
You know by reading the text that there was different groups there, right? Who we have in the New Testament? We have the Pharisees. Who else we have? You got the Sadducees. Who else we have? You say what? You got the scribes. Who else you have? Now some of these ain't in the text. But who else was around that time? Just think about that general area. You do have Gnostics, but we're trying to keep it to people who were of Israel. Well, some of them could have been of Israel, but you have the Essenes, right? You have the Zealots. You have a group called Sicarii. You have the Herodians. You have the Ebionites and the Marcionites. All right, the Ebionites. Who ever heard of the Ebionites? All right, so I'm about to give you all some history. All right. Ebionites. Ebionites. So these were followers of Mashiach, all right? They were the followers of the Messiah. They were believed to be Jews. Right, understand what I'm saying? He's referring to us, but they belonged to the Jewish God, believed to be Jewish. They observed the Sabbath, ate kosher, circumcised all males, according to Irenaeus. They revered Jerusalem, praying in its direction. They did not subscribe to the virgin birth. They believed in Yahusha. They believed that he kept the law perfectly, that his sonship to the Father was by adoption. They no longer practiced animal sacrifice. They believed that Yahusha was the final sacrifice. They did not accept any writings from Paul, and they had a version of the book of Matthew as their scriptural authority. This was one group that existed at that time. Another group called the Marcionites. Marcionites. I'm spelling this out so y'all can do your research on them later or look them up later. All right. They rejected the entire Hebrew scriptures. Its leader Marcion maintained that the attributes of the Old Testament God had to be a different one from the New Testament. That Jesus did not have a flesh and blood body. He was actually born, or excuse me, he wasn't actually born, was never human. He only appeared to be human with a material existence. And his sacred text was primarily Paul. Of course. Interesting thing about when these institutions try to make something orthodox is that they codify what it is that they believe. But then even their actions would show something different, because what he did, this dude Marcion, he basically, with the exception of some of his beliefs about the Messiah, he's really, a lot of what he believed is the way that Christians act to this day. They rejected him though. They rejected him, they rejected his teachings, they rejected his writings, as they should. It was terrible. Same thing they did with the Ebionites and anyone else. So they established these things. They established at that time all these other little splinter groups that were popping up and these other movements. They went on to eliminate them by whatever means possible. They eliminated the writings so that as much as they could, so that this stuff wouldn't show up later, that no one could read it. They did these things because, I'm sorry, before I go forward further, what group do you think I'm referring to? No. What group established what was Orthodox at that time? Church, not the church fathers. Well, to a degree, yeah, but what was the name of the institution? The Catholic Church. You know, Roman Catholic. All right. So this same group that is establishing what is Orthodox, they made a change to the Ten Commandments. I want to see if y'all can spot it. I'm going to read what their Ten Commandments are. I'm going to see if y'all can identify what's the change. You said what?
Catholic Church got the graven images.
So it took out 7 days. Okay, I'm going to read it. And after I read them, let's see what we pointed out. All right. I am the Lord your God. You shall worship the Lord your God, and only him you shall serve. 1. Number 2. You should not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. 3. Remember to keep the Sabbath day holy.
Stop right there.
He said, stop right there.
Stop right there.
You omitted graven images.
You omitted graven image.
I already knew it.
That is correct. They removed the third commandment. Now, this is what I say about institutional organized religions. How, because they are creating a framework of what the belief is. It don't matter if they're reading from the same book.
You never hear them talk about graven images in a Christian church.
Because they have a motive.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they? Because all they were doing their entire history was bowing down to idols. So they have a motive on why they would want to remove something like that. And that's why organized religion can be dangerous. Because the ones at the top have a motive, something clear that they want to do, and so they're going to find a means to justify it. Even if it means going against subtle, well, that's not, to me that ain't subtle, but even if it means going against the text that they claim to believe in. You know, you can have house rules to an organization. You can have house rules like we prefer to have women that have their hair covered. That's a house rule, right, that we have here. But when I start saying certain things like this is mandatory, but it doesn't say that in the text that is mandatory, then now I'm doing something different, right? Now, they go on, so they take out 1, and then you have number 9, which is you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, and then number 10, you shall not covet your neighbor's goods. They split it up. They had to make it 10.
Right.
So they split it up.
Right.
Very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Right.
let's continue. Remember, this is the same organization that began to oppress people at that time, force people to believe what they believe, and then you had another group called the Protestants who ended up separating from the same group and then establishing what they established elsewhere. Now, we know they changed the Sabbath day, right? Do y'all need me to read anything about them changing the Sabbath day, or are we all clear on that? Okay. We're all clear on that. Okay. So I'm going to skip all of these about the Sabbath. And then we're going to get to this one here. Very controversial. All right? So, you have something called Louisiana Code Nord. Y'all heard of that? Code Nord? 1724 is called Louisiana Code Nord. What this was is to regulate relations between slaves and colonists. The Louisiana Code Nord, so we're here in the Americas, or the slave code, based largely on that compiled in 1685 for the French Caribbean colonies, was introduced in 1724 and remained in force until the United States took possession of Louisiana in 1803. The code's 54 articles regulated the status of slaves and free blacks, as well as relations between master slaves and the entire body of laws below. We're almost done. Okay, so I'm going to read the first 5. Black Code of Louisiana says, number 1, decrees the expulsion of Jews from the colony. Number 2, makes it imperative on masters to impart religious instruction to their slaves. Number 3, permits the exercise of Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. That's important. Number 4, Negroes placed under direction or supervision of any other person than a Catholic are liable to confiscation. And 5, Sundays and holidays are to be strictly observed. All Negroes found at work on these days are to be confiscated. So they embedded these things into not only our people, but the people who were here, that this is what you must do. You must teach them Catholic doctrine. So let's examine some stuff about Catholic doctrine. This comes from a book called The Inquisition. So y'all familiar with Benaiah Israel?
Yes.
All right, so he be going deep into the history, right? So you know when we talk about the Spanish Jews who, according to all the information that he has brought out perfectly, I love his work. Who is that referring to when we talk about the Spanish Jews? He's talking about us, all right, so good. All right, and he loves to dive into these old historical books. Here's one. The Inquisition revealed in its origin, policies, cruelty, and history. This book was written in 1790.
Wow.
I'm sorry, no, that's when this person was born. It doesn't say when this was. Number 1, this is a list of heretics from the Catholic Church. Number 1, heretics. This is what they have there. Number 2, open and secret heretics. Number 3, schismatics. Number 4, receivers or favorers of heretics. 5, hinderers of the office of the Inquisition. 6, suspected heretics. 7, persons defamed for heresy. 8, relapse person. 9, readers of prohibited books. 10, those not priests administering the Lord's Supper.
Wow.
11, priests soliciting in confession. 12, blasphemers. 13, fortune tellers. Who else said 13? Yeah, that's fortune tellers. 14, witches and wizards. 15, polygamists. 16, Jews and proselytes. What stands out there?
The fact that we by ourselves are heretics.
What stands out there? I mean, some way, shape, or form, you're gonna be a heretic and you're gonna be convicted.
You can just be accused. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But anything stands out there?
They made it up as they wrote it. No. Just made that up.
Nothing stands out?
Obviously.
That's a big one. You're a heretic just from that. Just from that. There's another one.
Why polygamy?
Right.
Very interesting, right?
Because that was part
So
of
what
my
do you
culture.
think? What do you think that this disdain for polygamy comes from?
Our culture.
Right.
Is it? Is it our culture or a
African
culture
culture.
we've adopted or was forced on us?
Polygamy?
Yeah.
So what's the disdain?
Yeah.
Where the disdain
Why
came from?
was there so much disdain for that? You can look at it now amongst our community.
Yeah, it's a disdain.
It's clear. It's in the text. Now listen. Let me be clear. I don't care if you practice it or not. I want to show you something. Why was there such a disdain for it?
Population control.
Numbers.
That's important.
Numbers, population control, that's good.
To separate you as far from your cultural practices as possible.
True.
At least more
But
vulnerable.
who instituted that? Who established that as heresy?
They did.
Rome.
They always have.
The church.
The church.
They rather have a wife and a little boy.
I don't know. They'd just rather have a little boy.
Wow.
I'm
Right,
serious.
right, you're
Listen.
That's
right.
their culture.
Listen.
Right, the church. Okay.
Listen. You gotta follow the trail, because I've been leading you all on this trail. You gotta follow the trail. So, we had doctrines of the Catholic initially put on us. Those things are ingrained in us. It was still ingrained in Christianity, including the viewpoints. Even though they don't identify as Catholics,
Right.
there's still much of what they believe that comes from Catholicism. We come out of what? We come out of Christianity, which means that same view was put on us. So now we come into this knowledge and we look at the text
From the lens of.
from the lens of Christianity, which really means the lens of what?
Catholicism.
Catholicism.
Have that in.
Same book. The bullet point for polygamists, it says, those who marry 2 or more wives are suspected of heresy. What is heresy? What is heresy? Going against what a specific institution has approved. You're going against what's been sanctioned. Who sanctioned this? We already went through this. Don't try to get quiet now. We already went through. Y'all fell right for the trap. We already went through this. Who created the institution? The Romans. The Romans did it. So they classified it as heresy. It says, those who marry 2 or more wives are suspected of heresy. And disregarding the sacrament of matrimony. Such are punished with penances, fasting, and slavery in the galleys for 5, 7, or 10 years. This crime is but lightly considered in Spain, though it is looked upon as more serious by the inquisitors in Rome. Let me read this. Think about acculturation. I put everything in here for a reason. It was forbidden to have several concubines at once. This would have been polygamy. Contrary to Roman civilization. What does that mean? I'm going to read it again. It was forbidden to have several concubines at once. This would have been polygamy contrary to Roman civilization. Period. The Roman way of life was what?
One wife, 6 little boys.
One wife, 6 boys. You are probably correct. I would probably say 20 boys, but still.
Monogamy. What they define as monogamy.
What was their civilization was monogamy.
I find it interesting in that they say concubines versus ever qualifying that any of the women could be wives.
Yeah. This is from the Yale Law Journal too, just so y'all know. This thing's from the blog. It's from the Yale Law Journal, March 1907. This is Marriage and Roman Law, page 320. Likewise, a man having a lawful wife could not take a concubine. This would have been adultery and bigamy. And it goes on to talk about some other stuff, but let me keep going. Let's see, where are we? Think about acculturation. Marriage in ancient Rome was strictly a monogamous institution. A Roman citizen by law could have only one spouse at a time. The practice of monogamy distinguished the Greeks and Romans from other ancient civilizations. Ancient civilizations in which elite males typically had multiple wives. Greco-Roman monogamy have arisen from the democratic and republican political systems of the city-states. It is one aspect of ancient Roman culture that was embraced by early Christianity, which in turn perpetuated it as an ideal in later Western culture. Once again, this isn't about whether or not you want to participate. Every adult has an opt-out on whether or not they want to be involved in something like this. This ain't about that. This ain't even about making a doctrine. I'm not touching the scriptures concerning this. I'm dealing strictly with history. But I want to show you how easy it is for you to hold on to ideas, foreign ideas, due to organized religion.
That's huge.
You are not immune to it.
I cannot say, I think it's amazing on this page you just read, that they state that, for everyone else, this was happening. It was just their particular people that never, or it was not practiced or was frowned upon, but everyone around them was always practiced. And it's very similar, I think, to, now, you know, it's a little different nowadays, but here in Western, you know, the Western culture, you don't see it, but in most Eastern cultures, you still see that to this day. It's just maybe not talked about as much.
Correct.
Because of the influence from the Europeans.
Most people would be shocked to find out that their understanding of polygyny comes from ancient Rome, or it comes from Catholicism. You'd be shocked to find that out. But if you look through history, it will show you that this is why so many people here vehemently are upset with it, because this has been something that was systematically ingrained in people going back to ancient Rome. Another one, this is from polygamy.com. Right? It says, the history of polygamy dates back to a long time ago, since this has been practiced for many centuries by cultures from all over the world. The Hebrew society has partially accepted polygamy, and there are traces that say it happened in classical China too. The polygamy was also encountered sporadically in the Native Americans in the West African continent, Polynesia, India, and it says in ancient Greece. I disagree with that, but nevertheless. Polygamy was widely accepted throughout the world until the Roman Empire and the Roman Catholic Church has imposed the rules of having just one wife. But multiple lovers were the norm. Polygamy was widely accepted during the last 2,000 years of the sub-Saharan Africa also. Any questions before we continue? Y'all are quiet. Okay, there we go. Come on now.
Okay,
Come
so-
on. Listen, this is, I want to be clear. This lesson ain't a polygyny lesson.
No,
This lesson shows you how you can easily be deceived by organized religion. That's what the lesson is about.
Yeah.
I'm using that to highlight. Continue.
I was just gonna ask, I mean, what's the MO behind that? You know, why they so focused on that? I mean, especially if everybody else around them is already doing it, of different civilizations, different cultures, other areas, you know what I mean?
I'm not Greek, so I can't put myself in that mindset. And I haven't researched why they had such a problem with it, but they did. They did.
From a couple things that I've read, and you know, I'm not a scholar in this, but you know, it's always been common in their culture to have fertility problems. So when you look at most other cultures, the purpose of polygamy, I guess we'll use that term, specifically polygyny, was to duplicate the husband, right? For, you know, his seed to be in the earth as much as possible. And then you take a people that struggled in that area all the time, there would be no benefit. There would be no benefit, or the benefit wouldn't be as great to them to have that type of thinking if they struggle in that area. You know, of course, here in America, we have women of all types of cultures that struggle with fertility, but the rates are still staggering for Europeans, for their people compared to our people. So then that's why you would see Planned Parenthood and all that is created for us, because even with our issues nowadays, our number, we can easily procreate compared to them. So then, of course, you add, you know, Western culture, you get into, of course, the numbers of being able to overtake them, you know, with the more people. We see that all throughout the Bible. So, but that was something that I researched, and that was a constant thing, was fertility. So you had all these fertility gods. You get into I mean, this is always a thing for them. Always a thing for them.
Thank you. The History of the Council of Trent. This book is from 1676. All right, it says, and if anyone would make having of two wives a token of heresy. So they specify this right here. It says, they're calling that the token of heresy. Inferring that he, and bear with me if it seems like I'm struggling, because some of these S's, or all of the S's looks like looks like an F. It's very weird. But it says, a token of heresy, inferring that he that doeth believes it to be lawful. With this reason he might draw all cases to the Inquisition, for it may as well be said that the adulterer or the cheat or the thief do commit those wickedness, believing that they are lawful things. So, translation, anyone who takes two wives, which is a token of heresy, needs to be committed or treated as a thief or an adulterer, believing that it is lawful to do so. All right. And amongst the rest, we should put into the Inquisition all gypsies, it says gypsies, who get their life by stealing, and much more your highway robbers. And I'm going to skip down. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I got to read this. But contrary wife. Yes, there you go. Yeah. It's like an F. Thank you. But contrary wise, we must always suppose that every sinner has a true belief in Catholic doctrine, but do sin either through malice or through humane compassion, and so ought to be punished by his ordinary judge, which also to be observed in him who has two wives. Now I'm going to skip down, because this is important. And it is not true that in Spain that the case is absolutely reserved for the Inquisition, yea, it is ordinarily punished by the secular by branding in the forehead with a hot iron, but because the Jews and Moors hold plurality of wives to be lawful, those who are of Jewish or Moorish race are examined at the Inquisition for the suspicion of heresy and punished with branding for the offense.
Wow.
If a Turk or a Jew become Christian, if a Turk or Jew become a Christian found to have two wives, he may be tried in the Inquisition for his suspected belief for that offense in the ordinary court of justice. So, I read all that to show you how powerful religion is, and through generation after generation after generation, it becomes harder and harder and harder to identify where your belief systems and your viewpoints and your worldview actually comes from. The same institution that changed the Ten Commandments, who changed the holy days, which I didn't read because it was in there with the Sabbath as well. Changed the Ten Commandments, changed the holy days. It said that you no longer had to keep the law. Religion was forcefully put upon us. This same institution is the one that made a custom of our ancestors, polygyny, unlawful, heresy, worthy of torture. It's the same organization. This is why I teach us not to be dogmatic.
Yeah.
This is why I teach us not to act like we know it all. None of us have arrived. This is also why I teach us to focus on actually being practical, being useful with our understanding of the scriptures. So when you have this attitude as though you know everything, you begin to speak stuff and pretty much identify your brothers and sisters as false, or people who are bearing false witness. You're bearing false witness on someone because you don't fully understand where your worldview comes from. There is no change that was instituted in the text. The change came from the Romans, which most of us despise. This is not about you practicing it, but it needs to be addressed because I'm tired of people bearing false witness on other people because they believe in it. It's stupid.
Inappropriate.
If you don't put everything that you have believed to the test, then you shouldn't be speaking on stuff.
Say that.
And you need to learn to have enough grace and mercy because just like I'm sure most people thought they had everything figured out in Christianity, I know I did. You should have enough grace and mercy towards someone where even if you don't agree with their perspective, that you have enough respect, enough character to not label them wicked and slander them because something you don't understand.
Wow.
Because you've been influenced by Catholic doctrine and don't even know it. All the while trying to read answers into the text because you're not sure why you're so upset with it. No one forces anyone to do anything. This is America. Whether you like it or not, you do have a lot more freedoms than a lot of other places. One of those is to decide whether or not that's something you want to be a part of. You don't have to be. I'm not teaching a polygyny lesson. I'm teaching you. Stop being so dogmatic and understand how easy it is to have your worldview influenced by something else and not even know it.
Wow, that's huge. Hold on.
Organized religion is powerful. And all of us have been affected at some point. Put everything that you believe to the test. Do you want to be right or do you want the truth?
Oh.
Ask yourself that. Do you want to be right or do you want the truth? Any questions?
Okay, so I'm gonna see how I can word this. So I do that as far as trying to, because even with, I came from Christianity, my dad was a pastor and all that, so you have a lot in your mind that you're like trying to, get rid of. So I try to, challenge my own thoughts, what I've been taught and, what I used to believe. I guess so some of that is, so for example, do you believe that the scriptures are just like for example, so lying, for example, okay, is that you just don't lie to your brother and sister? Is it just for, these are directions for Israel and their interaction for each other? Or, so how do you do like the stranger or the, is it okay to lie to them? But and then, so how do you, because I'm very like, you're not supposed to be lying, or period, or, different things like that. I'm just using that as an example. But is it just between us as a community and as a tribe and or does it go outside of that? Should it stretch? Because it goes back to that message like, about thine enemy, don't.
Yeah. That's a very good question. A very, very good question. And this would be my take on something like that. While there are a lot of things that's strictly pertaining to Israel, there's some things that's strictly pertaining to the character and nature of a person. With that being said, the scripture tells you not to lie. It says that. So you don't teach that it's okay to lie. With that being said, there are examples that we can clearly see in the text that it becomes almost as if there are exceptions to the rule.
Yes, I think Abraham, he kept lying to the people saying, that's my sister.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a question, and everyone can chime in. So let's do this. If a gunman came in here, and a gunman came in here and he was looking for me. As soon as he came in, I saw him and I dug down, right? I dug down. Don't worry, I'm strapped. This is not how I say it. And I dug down. And he asked you, because he's looking to kill me. You understand that? He's looking to kill me. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. He's looking to murder me.
There you go.
There we go. What do you think the appropriate response should be?
He ain't here. What you about? He left.
Now
Then
are
you
you
get shot by
lying?
accident.
Is that lying? I think I lied.
And that would be the appropriate response, because you would now be exercising something that's called preserving life.
That's good.
It's kind of how Rahab was blessed
Right. Because he's, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
for lying and preserving life.
Mhm.
Some of these things are situational, but you never teach that, hey, don't lie. Excuse me, you do teach you don't lie. It's never okay to teach that you should, or that it's okay to do so, because you're changing the fabric of your morality.
Okay.
However, there are situations and there are exceptions to the rule, and preserving life is always one of them. Does that answer your question?
I was just gonna say, and actually Abraham's testimony does go with that. When he says, you know, it's like, why did, when people like approached him, was like, how come you tell his wife? He said, I feared that fear of Elohim was not here. Because keep in mind, the consequence, so to speak, that he feared was they was gonna kill him. So he was preserving his own being. And Isaac did the same thing later to the same man, ironically. So, it's about preserving life.
Yeah. Any other questions? How do y'all feel?
Great.
Y'all sure?
I just think that it's great. As
You all right?
just think it's great as we continue to dissect our thought process. You know, where has this stuff come from? I think the last several lessons have dealt with that. That goes back to the character portion of, of the structure of the assembly. And we have to be willing to check ourselves on a consistent basis. Look in the mirror before we get up in arms about what someone else is doing, what we perceive they're doing. From the Samson lesson, from the systematic oppression, it's just another level of being able to, hopefully, as we leave and as we're here, but as we leave, continue our time outside of the four walls of the assembly, that we are self-reflecting, we are looking into why do we do the things that we do, why do we think the way that we think, and that's not necessarily bad, but why? Because once we get the why, just like the story with the lady and cutting half the meat, brings back so many stories for me. Always from when I was younger, just the way my mother or grandmother did things, and I think growing up being in the church, I would have my children ready for hours sitting on the couch with gospel music playing, and that came from my mom, which got from her mother. And I remember when I thought back on it, it's probably because she had 6 children. She needed them in one spot, sitting down, where no one, got up and ripped a tight or stocking or whatever. Whereas I was just doing it just because that's what my mama did, right? And just sit down. Like, okay, well, it's just small, even small stuff like that, you find yourself doing. Sometimes it's beneficial, but a lot of times, because it has come from organized religion, or a lot of our thought processes, is not actually beneficial to us or our people or the way we view our people. So I just appreciate the lesson. It's another thing to suffer
Good, good. I mean, just think about the way, acculturation, that's the reason why I gave the definition, acculturation, where another culture imposes its religion or its culture upon you. And this is what Rome did to us. This is where it comes from. This is why the New Testament is silent about it, because that's just a continuation on what they was already believing. Silence doesn't mean that it changed.
Okay.
It wasn't a focal point. It's already existed. So what we have to do is we got to get rid of our presuppositions,
Okay.
our presumptions, our preconceived notions, our feelings and emotions. You got to put that stuff to the side. You got to see the text for what it is and ask yourself once again, do you want to be right or do you want the truth? And whatever that may be. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So, if you want to donate, it's a black box over there on the wall. You put cash in there. You can put cash or a check in there. If you're going to put a check in there, or if you're going to write a check, make it payable to cash. If you're going to use PayPal, use paypal.me/Torah Culture. If it's Cash App, you can donate at $Torah Culture. These are all free will offerings, so if you do so, we appreciate you. It helps us pay the bills, keep the lights on, and there's AC. All right? Which I'm sure you enjoy. And you're going to realize how much you like AC if you forgot this past 2 hours when you step outside. All right? Y'all good. Y'all uncomfortable.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. All right, y'all all right. Next week we're gonna discuss what you talked about. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Let's pray.